The silence in the council chamber was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the human delegation's podium, her hands still trembling from what she had just said. Around her, representatives from 47 different species sat frozen in their seats, their various appendages, tentacles, and limbs locked in positions of shock. Chen had never raised her voice before. Not once in her 8 years serving as Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Council. She had always smiled, always nodded, always apologized when other species spoke over her. That was the job. That was what humanity did. They were the newcomers, after all. The youngest species in the Council by several thousand years. It was their place to be polite, to be patient, to be grateful for their seat at the table. But something had broken today. Councillor Vraxthar of the Vrelnari stood across from her. His scales rippling with colors that Chen's briefings had taught her meant superiority and contempt. He had just finished explaining, for the third time this session, why humanity's request for protected status for their colony worlds was premature and unnecessarily cautious. His tone had made it clear he thought humans were paranoid children who didn't understand how the galaxy really worked. That's when Chen had snapped. The words had poured out of her before she could stop them. Real words. Angry words. True words. "You're lying," she had said, her voice cutting through Vraxthar's patronizing lecture. "You know exactly why we need those protections. Your own species has been surveying our colonies for the past 2 years. We have the probe data. We have the communications intercepts. You're planning something and you're insulting our intelligence by pretending we're too stupid to notice." The chamber had gone silent. Now, as that silence stretched on, Chen felt her heart hammering in her chest. She had just committed the ultimate diplomatic sin. She had been rude. Worse, she had been honest. Her hand moved to her ear, where the small translator device sat. Every human diplomat wore one. It wasn't just for language translation, though that was its official purpose. Hidden inside was another chip, a small piece of technology that Earth's government had installed in every diplomatic device sent off-world. They called it the diplomatic filter. The filter analyzed everything a human was about to say and adjusted it. It softened anger into concern. It transformed accusations into questions. It turned demands into humble requests. It made humans sound perpetually friendly, perpetually accommodating, perpetually weak. Chen's fingers found the small release switch behind her ear. With a soft click, she removed the entire translator unit and placed it on the podium in front of her. The device continued to translate the various alien languages being spoken around her, but now it would work in only one direction. The galaxy would hear her true voice. "Let me be clear," Chen said, and her words came out harder now, sharper. "Humanity has been very polite for 8 years. We've smiled while you've dismissed our concerns. We've waited patiently while you've delayed our proposals. We've accepted scraps from your table and said thank you." She paused, looking around the chamber. Some representatives wouldn't meet her eyes. Others stared with what might have been curiosity on their alien faces. "That ends today," Chen continued. "The polite mode has failed. It failed the moment we realized that being nice was being mistaken for being stupid." Vraxthar's scales flashed red, a color Chen knew meant anger. "This is highly inappropriate, Ambassador. You're having some kind of emotional breakdown. Perhaps humans are not yet ready for the responsibilities of council membership." "Emotional breakdown?" Chen laughed, and the sound was cold. "No, Counselor. This is clarity. Let me tell you what humanity has been doing while we've been smiling and nodding." She pulled out a data tablet and activated it. A holographic display filled the air above her podium. "We've been watching. We've been listening. We've been learning. Every naive question we asked, every innocent inquiry we made, it was all intelligence gathering. And we've gathered quite a lot." The hologram shifted, showing star maps, trade routes, military deployments, information that should have been private, secure, hidden from junior species like humanity. "We know about the Vrelnari expansion plans into the Outer Rim," Chen said. "We know about the forced relocation of the Kethril from their homeworld 20 years ago, and how the Council covered it up. We know about the trade agreements that are really tribute systems. We know about the protection fleets that are really occupation forces." The chamber erupted. Voices in dozens of languages filled the air, some angry, some frightened, some excited. The council speaker, an ancient being called a Thorian who looked like a floating crystal, made a sound like chimes to restore order. "Ambassador Chen, the speaker said, its voice resonating through everyone's translators. These are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Proof? Chen smiled. We have 8 years of proof. Did you think we weren't recording? Did you think we weren't analyzing? Humans are very good at collecting information. We've been doing it to each other for thousands of years. Compared to spying on our own governments, spying on yours was easy. Across the galaxy at that exact moment, something remarkable was happening. Every human diplomat and every embassy on every alien world reached up and removed their translator devices. The diplomatic filters came off. The polite mode ended. On the orbital station above the Council homeworld, Captain Maria Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Ship Determination, watching the feed from the Council chamber. She had been expecting this. Command had warned all fleet captains that something big was coming. They hadn't said what, but Rodriguez had guessed. You couldn't keep humans in a box forever. Eventually, someone was going to say what everyone was thinking. Captain, her communications officer said, we're receiving a priority message from Earth. It's the Secretary General. Rodriguez nodded. Put it through. The Secretary General's face appeared on screen. She looked tired but determined. All fleet units are to proceed to Alert Status 2. No hostile actions unless fired upon, but make sure everyone knows we're ready. The diplomacy has changed. Time to show them we're serious. Understood, ma'am, Rodriguez said. Back in the Council chamber, Vraxthar had recovered from his shock. His scales were now pure black, which Chen had learned meant rage. This is unacceptable. Humanity has been conducting espionage against the Council. You have violated every treaty, every protocol. I demand your species be expelled immediately. Chen looked at him calmly. The anger that had consumed her minutes ago had burned itself out, leaving behind something colder and more dangerous. Certainty. Expelled? She said. You can't expel us, Counselor. We quit. The chamber went silent again. Effective immediately, Chen continued. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will no longer participate in this body. We will no longer accept its authority. We will no longer pretend that this is a council of equals when it's really an empire with better public relations. She gathered her things, including the translator device, and prepared to leave. But she had one more thing to say. To the representatives of the younger species, she said, looking at the delegates from races that, like humanity, had joined the council in the last few centuries. You don't have to keep being polite either. You don't have to keep accepting this. If you want to talk about alternatives, about building something better, humanity's door is open. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, chaos erupted. But Ambassador Sarah Chen didn't look back. The polite mode had failed. The real humanity had just introduced itself to the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human embassy was burning with activity. Not literally burning, though several alien news networks were describing it that way in their breathless coverage. But every room, every hallway, every office space was filled with humans moving with purpose, executing plans that had been prepared months ago but kept secret until this moment. Ambassador Chen walked through the main corridor, nodding to staff members as they rushed past carrying boxes of files, computer equipment, and personal belongings. She could hear a dozen different conversations happening around her, all urgent, all focused. Yes, the coalition proposal is ready to send, just waiting for Chen's authorization. Transport ships are already in orbit. We can have all personnel off-world in 6 hours. The junior species ambassadors are asking for private meetings, all of them. Chen reached her office and found Minister James Okonkwo waiting for her. He was Earth's Minister of Colonial Affairs, sent to the Council homeworld 3 days ago on what had been officially called a routine visit. In reality, he had come to help coordinate what they were now calling the unfiltering. How bad is it? Chen asked, dropping into her chair. The adrenaline from the council chamber was wearing off, and she felt exhausted. Depends on your perspective, Okonkwo said with a slight smile. The council is in chaos. 17 species have requested emergency sessions. The Vrilnari are demanding sanctions against us. 3 elder species are calling for military action. And the good news? 22 junior species have contacted us privately. They want to know more about this alternative you mentioned. The Kethril ambassador actually cried when we sent her the evidence about what happened to her homeworld. She's been trying to get the council to acknowledge it for 20 years. Chen felt a weight in her chest. The Kethril were a gentle species, plant-based beings who had never developed weapons or even the concept of war. Their planet had been seized by the Council 40 years ago because it was rich in a rare mineral. The Kethril had been relocated to a smaller world and told it was for their own protection. Most had died during the move. "We need to be careful," Chen said. "We just declared independence from the most powerful political body in the galaxy. They're not going to let us walk away without consequences. That's why we prepared," Okonkwo replied. He activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of human ships throughout known space. Every colony has defense fleets in position. Every trade route has been secured. Every human citizen in Council space is being evacuated as we speak. We're not caught unprepared. Chen studied the display. It showed something the Council had never seen before because humanity had been very careful to hide it. Earth didn't have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They didn't have the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons. But they had something else. They had been preparing for war since the day they joined the Council. Not because humans were naturally aggressive despite what some species believed, but because humanity had a long history of being conquered, colonized, and exploited by stronger powers. They had learned through centuries of painful experience that being friendly was good, but being ready was better. "We need to release the next wave of information," Chen said. "The evidence about the Council's real history. Let the galaxy see what the elder species have been hiding." Okonkwo nodded and tapped his own tablet. "Already prepared. We're calling it the Council Papers. 200 years of leaked documents, communications, and classified reports. Everything from the forced assimilation of the Yintari to the economic manipulation of the Dross sector. We've even got footage of Council fleet actions that were officially denied. When do we release it?" "Now, if you give the order." "But Chen, you need to understand what this means. Once this information is out there, there's no going back. The Council will see this as an act of war. Not a military war, maybe, but a war nonetheless." Chen thought about the weight of that decision. She thought about the 8 years she had spent smiling and nodding. She thought about every time she had swallowed her anger and accepted an insult, because that was what diplomats did. She thought about all the humans on colony worlds who had trusted their government to protect them. "Do it," she said. "Release everything." Okonkwo sent the command. Across the galactic data network, files began to propagate. The Council papers spread like wildfire, jumping from server to server, being copied and shared faster than any censorship system could contain them. Within an hour, the galaxy knew the truth. The Galactic Council wasn't a democratic institution that welcomed new species into a community of equals. It was an empire that had learned to smile while it conquered. It offered membership to younger species, not as a gift, but as a trap. Once you joined, you became dependent on Council trade, Council technology, Council protection, and that dependence gave the elder species control. The junior species weren't partners. They were resources. Their worlds, their people, their futures were all managed by the Council for the benefit of the species who had held power for millennia. Chen watched the galaxy's reaction on multiple news feeds. On some worlds there were protests, on others there were celebrations. The people of the Kethril were shown on camera, holding vigils for those who had died in the relocation. The government of the Zeller Republic issued a statement demanding an investigation into Council actions in their sector. But the elder species reacted differently. The Vrelnari called the leaked documents terrorist propaganda. The Thorians claimed the information was falsified. The Korvaxi declared a state of emergency on their homeworld and shut down their public data networks. "They're scared," Okonkwo observed, watching the same feeds. "They've been in control for so long they can't imagine a galaxy where they're not in charge." "We're not trying to take control," Chen said. "We just want them to stop controlling us. Try telling them that. To them, it's the same thing." A priority message came through on Chen's terminal. It was from the Council speaker, requesting an immediate private communication. Chen almost declined, but curiosity won out. She accepted the call. The Thorian appeared as a hologram, its crystalline body refracting light in patterns that Chen had learned indicated stress. Ambassador Chen, or should I say former ambassador, since you have withdrawn from the council. That's correct, Chen said evenly. What can I do for you, Speaker? You can stop this madness before it destroys everything we have built. The council has maintained peace in this galaxy for over 10,000 years. Your actions are putting that peace at risk. Chen felt anger rising again, but this time she controlled it. She had learned something today. Anger was useful, but only if you directed it properly. Peace, she said. Speaker, with respect, you can't call it peace when it's built on subjugation. The species you've conquered don't feel peaceful. They feel trapped. We have never conquered anyone, the Thorian said, but its patterns flickered with what Chen thought might be uncertainty. We offer membership. We offer technology and protection. Species accept willingly, because you make sure they have no other choice. You control all the major trade routes. You regulate access to advanced technology. You position your fleets near every emerging civilization. Join the council or be isolated and vulnerable. That's not a choice. That's coercion. The speaker was silent for a moment. Then it said something Chen hadn't expected. What do you want? Chen leaned forward. We want a real council. Equal representation. Equal voice. Equal protection under consistent laws that apply to everyone, not just the junior species. We want transparency in council decisions. We want accountability for past actions. And we want the right to defend ourselves without asking permission. Impossible, the speaker said. The elder species will never accept such terms. Then they'll be left behind, Chen replied. Because the junior species are done accepting the status quo, we're building something new. An alternative. A real coalition of equals. Anyone who wants to join is welcome. Anyone who wants to stay with the council can do so. But we're not going to keep pretending that the Emperor is wearing clothes when we can all see that he's naked. The speaker's hologram flickered and went dark. The call had ended. Okonkwo raised an eyebrow. Well, that went about as expected. What now? Chen stood up and looked out the window of her office. She could see the curve of the planet below, the lights of the capital city spreading across the night side. Somewhere down there, 47 species were trying to figure out what came next. Now, she said, we find out who our real friends are. The unfiltered truth was out. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity was ready for whatever came next. The council war room was a place few beings ever saw. Hidden deep beneath the council headquarters, it was where the elder species made the decisions that really mattered. The public council chamber was theater. This room was where power lived. 7 beings sat around a circular table that had been old when some civilizations were still figuring out fire. Each represented one of the founding species of the Galactic Council, the races that had shaped the galaxy for the past 10,000 years. They were used to being obeyed. They were used to being feared, even if that fear was hidden behind polite smiles. They were not used to being defied. Councillor Vraxthar of the Vrelnari slammed his clawed hand on the table. This is intolerable. The humans have made us look like fools. They've released classified information to the entire galaxy. They've encouraged rebellion among the junior species. And they've done it all while hiding behind their pathetic mask of friendliness. The mask is off now, said Councillor Threll of the Korvaxi, her voice like grinding stone. We see what they really are, clever, devious, dangerous. We should have seen it sooner, added Councillor Ven of the Xiphos, a being that looked like liquid metal contained in a humanoid shape. Their planet's history should have warned us. They spent thousands of years fighting each other. They have more words for war than any other species in the database. We thought they had evolved past their violent nature. We were wrong. The Thorian speaker hovered at the head of the table, its crystalline structure pulsing with slow, deep colors. It was the oldest being in the room by several thousand years. It had seen civilizations rise and fall. It had guided the council through countless crises. But even it seemed uncertain about what to do with humanity. The question is not what the humans are, the speaker said. The question is what we do about them. They have broken the social order that has maintained galactic stability for millennia. If we allow this challenge to stand, others will follow. The entire structure will collapse. We destroy them, Vraxthar said simply. We send the fleet to Earth and remind them why the elder species rule. Make an example that no one will forget. And confirm everything they said about us? Counselor Myrana of the Selkri said, her voice soft but firm. The Selkri looked like humanoid deer, but their appearance was deceptive. They were master strategists. If we attack Earth without provocation, we prove their point. The junior species will unite against us. They're already uniting, Vraxthar snapped. 22 species have signed the Humans Coalition proposal. 22. In 3 days. We cannot allow this to continue. Direct military action is too risky, Ven said. But we have other tools. Economic sanctions. Trade embargoes. Cut them off from galactic commerce. Let them see what life is like without council support. Agreed, said Counselor Hrath of the Durnai, a massive being that resembled an armored crustacean. We control the hyperspace lanes. We control the trade routes. Without access to the galactic economy, these rebels will starve. The humans will come crawling back within a year. The speaker considered this. A blockade, then. Not military, but economic. We cut off the human worlds and their allies from council trade. We warn neutral species that doing business with the rebels will result in sanctions against them as well. We strangle this rebellion before it can spread further. And what about the information they released? Myrana asked. The council papers. We can't unring that bell. Half the galaxy has seen evidence of our past actions. We deny it, Vraxthar said. We call it propaganda. We use our media networks to spread counter-narratives. We've done it before. This is different, Myrana said. The evidence is too detailed. Too verified. Some of what they released includes communications from my own government. I know it's authentic because I was there when some of those decisions were made. The room fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but they all knew the truth. The council papers were real. The forced relocations, the manipulated treaties, the hidden military actions, all of it had happened. The only question was whether they could convince the galaxy it hadn't. We control the narrative, the speaker said finally. We admit to some mistakes, claim they were necessary for the greater good, and promise reforms. Meanwhile, we tighten our grip on the species that matter. The wealthy worlds, the strategic systems, the resource-rich sectors. Let the poor outer colonies play at rebellion. They need us more than we need them. And the human colony worlds? Hrath asked. We make an example of one, Vraxthar said. Not Earth itself. Too risky. But one of their colonies. Somewhere visible but not too valuable. We send a fleet, we make a show of force, we remind them that the council has teeth. New Providence, Ven suggested. It's their newest colony. Only 50,000 humans. Far from Earth, deep in the outer rim. If something unfortunate happened there, it would take weeks for help to arrive. The speaker pulsed with dark red light. A police action, not a military strike. We're responding to reports of weapons smuggling or treaty violations. Something that gives us legal cover. We show force, the humans back down. And the other junior species remember who really holds power. And if the humans don't back down? Myrana asked quietly. Then we discover just how far humans are willing to go for their principles. Vraxthar said with a cruel smile. My guess? Not very far. They're soft. They play at being tough, but when faced with real consequences, they'll fold. They always do. The vote was called. 6 in favor, 1 abstention. Myrana didn't vote against, but she didn't vote for either. The decision was made. 3 hours later, a council fleet of 37 warships departed from the military station at Korvaxi Prime. Their destination? The human colony of New Providence. Their mission? Remind the humans of their place in the galactic order. On New Providence itself, 50,000 humans went about their daily lives, unaware that they were about to become a message written in starships and threats. Governor Lisa Park was in her office, reviewing agricultural reports when the priority alert came through. She read it twice, not quite believing what she was seeing. Then she activated the colony-wide emergency system. All residents, this is Governor Park. We've received word that a council fleet is en route to our system. They're claiming we're under investigation for treaty violations. But we believe this is a show of force related to Earth's withdrawal from the council. All citizens should remain calm and follow emergency protocols. Our defense forces are being mobilized. Earth has been notified and help is on the way. She tried to sound confident, but her hands were shaking as she turned off the microphone. New Providence had a defense force, but it was small. 6 patrol ships and some ground-based weapons. They were designed to handle pirates or smugglers, not a council fleet. She looked out her window at the colony spread below. Streets with names like New Beijing Road and Second Chance Avenue, parks where children played, schools, hospitals, homes, 50,000 people who had come here to build new lives, believing Earth would protect them. Park hoped that belief wasn't misplaced. In orbit above the colony, Commander Michael Torres stood on the bridge of the defense ship Vigilant, watching his tactical display. 6 ships, 6 against 37. The math wasn't good, sir, his tactical officer said. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Defense Command. They're dispatching reinforcements, but they're 3 days out. 3 days? Torres said. The Council fleet will be here in 18 hours. Yes, sir. But there's more. We're also receiving authorization codes from ships in neighboring systems, not just human ships. Looks like some of our new friends are coming to help. Torres pulled up the data. His eyes widened. The coalition Chen had formed was real. Ships from 4 different species were burning hard for New Providence, trying to reach them before the Council fleet arrived. They would still be outnumbered, but maybe not as badly as he'd thought. All right, Torres said. Send to all ships battle stations. No one fires unless fired upon, but we're not running. Not today. Across the galaxy, millions of beings watched their screens as news of the Council fleet's movement spread. The humans had challenged the Council. Now they would face the consequences. The question was, what would happen when an unstoppable force met an immovable object? The galaxy was about to find out. The Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Providence system, with the kind of precise coordination that spoke of centuries of military tradition. 37 warships, each one a masterpiece of advanced technology, arranged themselves in a formation designed to intimidate. At the center was the flagship, a Vrilnari dreadnought called the Dominance. The name was not subtle. On the bridge of the Dominance, Fleet Commander Ktharnak studied the tactical display with satisfaction. This would be a simple operation. Show overwhelming force, deliver the Council's demands, watch the humans surrender. He had done this dozens of times to dozens of species. It always ended the same way. Then his tactical officer made a sound of surprise. Commander, we're detecting multiple ships in the system, not just the expected human defense force. We're reading contacts from at least 6 different species. Tharnak's scales rippled with irritation. The colony called for help, expected. How many ships total? Counting all contacts. 28, sir. And more are arriving. We're detecting hyperspace signatures from multiple vectors. 28. Tharnak had been told to expect perhaps 6 or 7 human patrol boats. He zoomed in on the tactical display. The ships were arranged in a defensive formation around New Providence. He recognized the signatures. Human ships, yes, but also Kethril, Zeller, Dross, even a few Yintari vessels. The junior species were actually standing together. That was new. Open a channel to the human forces, Ktharnak ordered. Let's get this over with. On the bridge of the Earth defense ship Determination, Captain Maria Rodriguez watched the Council fleet settle into formation. She had arrived 6 hours ago with 8 ships from the Rapid Response Fleet. It wasn't enough to match the Council's firepower. But combined with Commander Torres's defense force and the coalition ships that had come from neighboring systems, they had 34 vessels total, still outnumbered, but not as badly as it could have been. They're hailing us. Captain, her communications officer said. Put it through, Rodriguez ordered. The view screen filled with the image of Ktharnak. His scales were colored in patterns that Rodriguez's briefing material said indicated confidence and authority. I am Fleet Commander Ktharnak of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet, he said, his voice carrying the tone of someone used to being obeyed. This system is under investigation for violations of Council trade regulations and weapons treaties. All ships will stand down and allow Council inspectors to board and search all vessels and facilities. Failure to comply will be considered an act of aggression against the Council. Rodriguez kept her face neutral. Commander Ktharnak, I am Captain Maria Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Fleet. New Providence is a human colony operating under human law. Earth has withdrawn from the Galactic Council, which means Council regulations no longer apply to us. We respectfully decline your inspection request. Tharnak's scales shifted to colors that Rodriguez's briefing said meant anger mixed with disbelief. You cannot simply withdraw from the Council and ignore galactic law. The regulations exist for the safety of all species. Then perhaps the Council should have thought about that before using those regulations as tools of control. Rodriguez replied calmly. We're not looking for a fight, Commander. But we're not surrendering either. I suggest you turn your fleet around and return to Council space. You're outnumbered, Catharnak said. 37 ships against your ragged collection. Your largest vessel is half the size of my dreadnought. This is your final chance to comply. Rodriguez smiled. And there was something in that smile that made Catharnak's scales flicker with uncertainty. Commander, let me tell you something about humanity, she said. We spent thousands of years fighting each other on our homeworld. We got very, very good at war. We learned every dirty trick, every tactical innovation, every way to turn weakness into strength. When we joined the galactic community, we looked at Council military doctrine and we were amazed. You fight like species who haven't had a real war in millennia. Because you haven't, she leaned forward. You have bigger ships, better weapons, but we have something you don't. We have experience. We know what real combat looks like, and we're not impressed by your formation or your reputation. This is your final warning, Catharnak said, but his scales were now showing colors that meant uncertainty. Stand down or face the consequences. No, Rodriguez said simply. And, Commander, if you fire on this colony, if you fire on any of these ships, you won't just be fighting humans. You'll be fighting the whole coalition. 34 ships from 7 species who are all tired of being pushed around. Are you really ready for that war? Catharnak cut the connection. On the Dominance's bridge, he studied the tactical situation. 34 against 37. Not impossible odds for the defenders, especially if they were positioned well. And they were positioned very well. Whoever had arranged that defensive formation knew what they were doing. Sir, his tactical officer said nervously, the human ships are doing something strange. They're deploying some kind of drones or satellites, thousands of them. Catharnak watched as small objects spread out from the human ships, creating a cloud of contacts between the Council fleet and New Providence. What are those? Unclear, sir. They're too small to be weapons platforms. Maybe sensor buoys. All ships advance slowly, Catharnak ordered. If they want to make us work for it, fine. But I'm not leaving this system without making our point. The Council fleet began to move forward. The human and coalition ships held their positions. That's when Rodriguez gave the order. Activate the field. Every one of the thousands of small satellites that the human ships had deployed suddenly came online. Each one generated a powerful electromagnetic pulse on a carefully tuned frequency. Individually, they were harmless. Together, they created a cascading interference pattern that swept across the Council fleet like an invisible wave. On the Dominance, every system went dark. Lights, sensors, weapons, engines, everything. The dreadnought went from deadly warship to floating debris in 3 seconds. It happened to all 37 Council ships simultaneously. One moment, they were an unstoppable fleet. The next, they were drifting hulks. Catharnak sat in darkness on his bridge, hearing the emergency systems struggling to come back online. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore power. His scales had turned white, the color of shock. What happened? He managed to say. EMP burst, sir, his tactical officer reported, using a backup console that was finally coming online. Cascading pattern targeted at our power distribution systems. It exploited a vulnerability in our ship design that I didn't even know existed. How long until we're operational? At least an hour for basic systems, sir. Maybe 6 hours for full combat capability. Catharnak's scales turned gray, the color of defeat. In 6 hours, if the humans wanted to, they could destroy his entire fleet. The ships were helpless, but the humans weren't firing. Instead, Rodriguez's voice came over the emergency communication channel, the only system still working because it ran on hardened military technology. Commander Catharnak, do you understand now? We hit you with non-lethal weapons. We could have used missiles, railguns, fusion bombs. We could have destroyed your entire fleet, but we didn't. We made a point instead. Rodriguez paused, letting that sink in. Humanity has been holding back, Commander. While we smiled and nodded in the Council chambers, we were preparing. We studied your ships, your tactics, your technology. We found the weaknesses, and we've been very patient, waiting for the moment when we'd need to show what we could really do. You've made your point, Catharnak said, and his voice was quiet. What now? Now you take a message back to the Council, Rodriguez said. Tell them that the junior species aren't weak. We're not helpless. We've been learning from you, and in some ways we've surpassed you. Tell them that if they want war, we'll give them war. But if they want peace, real peace between equals, we're ready to talk. Your systems will come back online in about an hour. Rodriguez continued. When they do, turn your fleet around and go home. And, Commander, don't come back unless you're coming as friends. The channel closed. Catharnak sat in the darkness of his bridge and contemplated what had just happened. He had been in the Council military for 40 years. He had conducted dozens of police actions. He had always won. This was the first time he had ever really lost. And the worst part was the humans had been gentle about it. They had humiliated him without killing anyone. They had proven their point without firing a shot in anger. He understood now why the elder species were worried. The humans weren't just rebellious. They were dangerous. Not because they were violent, but because they were smart. They had outthought the Council, outplanned them, and made them look like amateurs. When his systems came back online, Catharnak gave the order to withdraw. The Council fleet limped out of the New Providence system with its tail between its legs. On New Providence, 50,000 colonists erupted in celebration. In space, the coalition ships exchanged congratulatory messages. Ships from 7 species had stood together, and they had won without firing a shot. On Earth, in the command center, the Secretary General watched the reports with satisfaction. The message had been sent. The galaxy had heard it. 6 months had changed the galaxy more than the previous 6,000 years. The neutral space station called Haven floated in a system that belonged to no one, controlled by no government, claimed by no empire. It had been built 300 years ago as a trading post, and over time it had become the one place where anyone could meet anyone, regardless of politics or history. Now it was about to host the most important negotiation in galactic history. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of her temporary quarters, looking out at the ships arriving. Council vessels, sleek and impressive. Human ships, smaller but purposeful. Ships from dozens of junior species, some of them flying in formation with each other for the first time ever. And a few ships that belonged to elder species who had broken with the Council, deciding that the old ways were no longer working. 6 months ago, she had removed her diplomatic filter and told the truth. She had quit the Council. She had helped start a rebellion. Now she was about to find out if that rebellion would lead to something better or something worse. Minister Okonkwo entered the room carrying a data pad. The Council delegation has arrived. The Speaker is here along with representatives from all the elder species. Well, almost all. The Vrelnari refused to come. Of course they did, Chen said. They're the ones who lost the most. 3 of their subject species declared independence after New Providence. Their economy is in trouble. They're not going to forgive us. Their problem, not ours, Okonkwo said. The question is, are the other elder species ready to actually negotiate, or is this just theater? We're about to find out, Chen replied. The negotiation chamber was huge, designed to accommodate beings of vastly different sizes and needs. At one side of a massive circular table sat the Council delegation. The Speaker, the Thorian crystal being who had led the Council for centuries. Councillor Myrana of the Selkri, Councillor Ven of the Xiphos, even Councillor Hrath of the Durnai, who had voted for the attack on New Providence but had at least had the honesty to admit afterward that it had been a mistake. On the other side sat the Free Species Coalition. Chen represented humanity. Beside her were representatives from 43 other species, including some Chen had never heard of 6 months ago. They all shared one thing in common. They were tired of being told what to do. The Speaker spoke, first its voice resonating through everyone's translators. We are here because the galaxy is at a crossroads. The actions of humanity and its allies have disrupted 10,000 years of stability. We must decide if we can find a new path forward, or if we are heading toward war. Chen had prepared a speech. Something diplomatic, carefully worded, designed to ease tensions. But as she looked at the Speaker, at the elder species representatives who still carried themselves with such confidence despite everything that had happened, she decided to put the diplomatic filter back on, not the technological one. She would never use that again, but she would be polite. Honest, but polite. Speaker, with respect, The old stability wasn't stable, Chen said. It was just well-managed control. The junior species weren't happy. We were just too afraid to say so. Humanity took off the mask and said what everyone was thinking. That's not disruption. That's honesty. Honesty that cost lives, Harath said, his voice like grinding stones. 3 colony worlds saw riots after your council papers were released. 12 governments fell. There have been conflicts between species that hadn't fought in centuries. You call this an improvement? I call it growing pains, Chen replied. Yes, there was chaos. That's what happens when you reveal that the authority figures have been lying. But that chaos is better than the quiet suffering of species who believed they had no choice but to obey. Myrana leaned forward. Her expression was hard to read, but Chen thought she saw something like respect in the Selkri's eyes. What do you want from this negotiation, Ambassador? Truly? Chen looked around the table at the coalition representatives, then back at the council delegates. We want a real council. Not one where elder species make decisions and junior species nod along. We want equal representation. Every species gets a vote, and every vote counts the same. We want transparent decision-making, not secret meetings where our fates are decided without us. We want the right to defend ourselves without asking permission, and we want accountability for past actions. Impossible, Ven said, its liquid metal form rippling with what might have been anger. The elder species have earned their positions through millennia of service to galactic civilization. We cannot simply throw away that experience and give equal power to species who have barely left their home systems. Experience that you used to control us, said Ambassador Resh of the Kethril, her voice soft but firm. Experience that you used to take our worlds, relocate our people, and tell us it was for our own good. Forgive us if we don't trust your experience anymore. The Kethril relocation was a mistake, Myrana admitted. We have acknowledged this. Reparations have been offered. 50 years too late, Resh replied. And only because we finally had leverage to demand them. The argument continued for hours. The elder species wanted to maintain their authority while making cosmetic reforms. The coalition species wanted real, structural change. The two positions seemed impossible to reconcile. Chen watched the debate and felt exhaustion setting in. Not physical exhaustion, though she was tired. Emotional exhaustion. 6 months of fighting, arguing, negotiating. 6 months of being the face of rebellion. She wondered if it was worth it. Then she looked at Ambassador Resh, who was standing, up to species that had terrified her people for generations. She looked at the representatives of a dozen other junior species who had found their voices. She thought about the 50,000 humans on New Providence who had faced down a council fleet and won. It was worth it. During a break, the speaker approached Chen privately. The crystalline being pulsed with colors she had learned to read as thoughtful consideration. You have changed the galaxy, Ambassador Chen, the speaker said. Whether for better or worse remains to be seen. That's what we're here to decide, Chen replied. I have lived for 6,000 years, the speaker said. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen the council grow from 7 species to over 100. I believed we were building something good, something that brought order to chaos. You were, Chen said, at first. But power corrupts. Even the best intentions can turn into control if you're not careful. The speaker's colors shifted to something Chen couldn't interpret. I am told that you are wearing your diplomatic filter again today. The technological one, is this true? Chen smiled. Yes, but only for voice translation. The filter that made me polite when I should have been honest, that's gone forever. I destroyed it. Good, the speaker said, and Chen was surprised to hear what sounded like approval. The galaxy needs honesty now more than politeness. When negotiations resumed, something had shifted. The elder species stopped defending the past and started talking about the future. The coalition species stopped demanding punishment and started proposing solutions. It wasn't easy. There were still arguments, still disagreements, still moments when Chen thought the whole thing would collapse. But slowly, hour by hour, day by day, a new framework emerged. The Galactic Council would continue to exist, but it would be reformed. Every species would have a vote, weighted by population but with protections for smaller species. Decisions would require approval from both elder and junior species representatives. A new charter would be written, with input from all species, establishing clear rights and limitations. The Council's military forces would be reorganized as a true peacekeeping force, not a tool of elder species control. Economic regulations would be enforced fairly, with independent oversight. And most importantly, the Council papers and similar historical evidence would be formally acknowledged. The elder species would apologize for past actions and commit to transparency going forward. It wasn't perfect. The coalition had wanted more. The elder species had given up less than Chen had hoped. But it was progress. Real, meaningful progress. On the final day of negotiations, as the new charter was being signed, Chen stood at the podium to give a closing statement. She looked out at the assembly, beings from 100 different worlds, each with their own languages, cultures, and histories, united not by force but by choice. She activated her translator. The diplomatic filter was still there, still ready to make her sound friendly and accommodating. She reached up, touched the device, and considered turning the filter back on. Just for this moment, just to sound diplomatic and polished. Then she smiled and left it off. 6 months ago, I stood in the council chamber and removed my diplomatic filter, Chen said. I stopped being polite and started being honest. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, and it was the best decision I ever made. She paused, looking around the room. The galaxy doesn't need more politeness, it needs more truth. It needs more courage to speak that truth, and it needs people who are willing to listen to hard truths without getting defensive. We've built something new here, Chen continued. Not perfect, not ideal, but real. A council where every voice matters, where power is earned through service, not inherited through age.